Kevin Haig.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a great pleasure to take a call on this bill on behalf, really, of my colleague David Clendon, who's followed the issues that the bill canvasses with considerable interest. I wanted to begin by referring to what's happening in Auckland over about the last year or so, and that is a trial of a new specialist kind of court, the alcohol and other drug treatment courts. And the principle behind those courts is to take offenders who meet certain criteria, that repeat criminal offenders whose offending is fuelled by alcohol and other drug consumption, and who otherwise would be on their way into a custodial sentence. And it says for those offenders, let's divert them away from that custodial path, and instead let's try something else. Let's try actually treating the alcohol or other drug use that's actually fuelling their criminal behaviour. And what the court does is it imposes a strict regime of actually irregular rather than regular but frequent testing for them, and compulsory alcohol or other drug treatment programs. It involves frequent reappearances in court in front of the same judge and in front of the same team that was present at their first appearance to monitor progress. Mr. Speaker, I spent a day in Judge Emma Aitken's court in Auckland, following the process that was employed by the court, and it was an extraordinarily rewarding day. I've spent a lot of time over the years in courts, and it's usually a pretty depressing process. But in this particular court, I saw in the morning a panel convened by the judge that involved the prosecution, defence lawyers, social workers, treatment providers, all getting together, discussing the cases that they were going to be considering in the afternoon, and thinking, what progress is this person making? What is the best thing that we could do for this person when they appear this afternoon? And I was hugely impressed by the genuine goodwill and concern shown by all of those parties. And then in the afternoon, I was able to see the offenders who had been discussed in the morning appearing in the court, and seeing the plans that had been worked out in the morning actually being implemented. And I have to say, after years of administering alcohol and other drug treatment services for district health boards and other health service providers, saw a really rewarding process of the people appearing before this court actually making progress and actually changing their lives, which was fantastic. I was particularly encouraged because it was a new way of dealing with criminal offending, whereas the old way, which is traditional punishment, is clearly not working. Clearly not working. The prison and other forms of punishment simply do not address the irrational behaviour that emerges from the consumption of alcohol and other drugs. These are irrational processes that are not possible to change through punishment mechanisms that intend to impact on offending. That is why this bill is so important, because it provides a springboard to allow us to do something a little bit different in community-based sentencing and in bail. And Mr. Speaker, that's one of the reasons why the Green Party is supporting this bill today. We're supporting it at least as far as the Select Committee. Because while currently some treatment is available in prisons and in other corrections settings, the simple fact is that most of the offenders who need that treatment are not getting it. And yet, as we've already heard in this debate from Kelvin Davis, perhaps most of the criminal offending that comes before the courts is actually fuelled by alcohol and other drug consumption. So we have a fundamental disconnect between what's causing offending, what might change that offending, and how we respond to it. So typically, corrections, sentencing aims to do several things. It aims to provide a disincentive for other offending. It aims to take a person who has committed offences out of circulation so that they cannot re-offend during that time, and it sets out to provide, I hesitate to use the word, but a kind of revenge for a retribution for the offending. It does not set out to change the fundamental drivers, and that's where this bill comes in, sir. I want to quote from Roger Brooking, who's one of our most experienced drug and alcohol counsellors involved in corrections. He wrote a book called Flying Blind, How the Justice System Perpetuates Crime and the Corrections Department Fails to Correct. What he says, sir, is by failing to place offenders into substance abuse treatment in particular, the justice system actually contributes to criminal reoffending and to New Zealand's high rate of recidivism. The biggest obstacle in the system is that although 80% of offending occurs under the influence of alcohol and drugs, only about 5% of all offenders are required by judges to attend a treatment program as part of their sentence. So, Mr. Speaker, the Green Party supports this bill for these reasons, because it provides the opportunity for us to connect offenders with alcohol and drug treatment programs. That is a connection that's simply not occurring at the moment. And also, sir, for the absolutely obvious reason that if we've got 200, 250, I guess estimates would vary, people who have been required to be abstinent by judges when they've appeared before the court, and who would pose a serious risk to New Zealanders if they are not, but there is no mechanism for ensuring or monitoring their abstinence, then, Mr. Speaker, that's a fundamental problem. It places the public at risk, and it means that those offenders themselves are actually at risk of further offending. So, Mr. Speaker, we would say that intensive targeted testing is going to be the most effective at improving public safety, because it focuses the testing on those who pose the highest risk of breaching an abstinence condition and causing the greatest harm if they do so. And the House has already heard that research from the United States, in fact, has shown that the high likelihood of detection is a significant factor in avoiding further offending. So, Mr. Speaker, we do want to see the testing that this bill provides for linked up with treatment programs. We believe that is in the best interest of achieving a health approach to offending rather than a purely punitive criminal justice approach. And, Mr. Speaker, we agree with the other concerns, and this is why we at this point support the bill only to select committee, expressed by Phil Goff, around some of those other issues, because this regime could be used as a means of harassment. And so that is why we say at the Select Committee we will be looking for the processes for determining who will do the testing, the processes for how testers will gain access into private homes. We'll be looking for the mechanisms to ensure that there could be independent oversight and review of the testing processes that have been used. Those are the concerns that we're going to be looking for, Mr Speaker, but we're very happy to support the bill to Select Committee at this point. Thank you, sir.